Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
Hey listeners, the What's Working in Ag segments have been important to this podcast for a long time, but this is one that would you say is near and dear to my heart because I love the financial side of agriculture. I love the financial side of farming. And I know that we had an episode on this topic. It was episode 455, if you go back to January 6th of 2025. But ultimately, we're going to dive in and get to meet the CEO behind Ambrook. I'm excited to welcome McKenzie Bernett here to the conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So real fast, because we know they can go back to episode 455 and listen, who is Ambrook and what do they do before we learn more about McKenzie?
Yeah, so Ambrook, we build financial management software. So that's accounting, payments, some embedded banking for agriculture. So most of our customers are farms and ranches. We work with folks in all 50 states. We've actually started to onboard a lot of their side businesses too. So we've started to expand a bit into trucking, construction. I think farmers just... we were working with them and then they decided they wanted to bring on every other LLC that they had. And we had to make sure to accommodate that. So
I love that. We're going to bring the podcast LLC.
Yeah.
That way we can throw that in there as well. So exciting part about being a podcast host is you sometimes get access to the folks at the top. So I've introduced you as the CEO of Ambrook, but how did you get to that position? How did McKenzie's life lead up to that?
Yeah. I think the short story is that I kind of fell in love with ag in my own way in grad school. I had grown up, my whole family works in ag policy at the USDA, which is a good thing to some people and a not so good thing to other people. But for me, it was just normal. My whole family works in plant health protection. So the conversations at the dinner table were more about like citrus canker and fruit fly infestations. And so I kind of just had that lens growing up. And I didn't really think about working in ag until I was in grad school. And I was doing some research on how the U.S. military kind of understood resource scarcity and its impact on conflict. And the thing that kept on coming up over and over again was food and water scarcity. And I was like, wow, that's super interesting. Like, why does that keep on coming up? You know, I talked to anywhere from like a, commanding general for AFRICOM all the way to like folks who are doing, more domestic policy and just kept on coming up. And in my backyard, I was at Stanford. So in our backyard was just all the water wars that were happening in the Central Valley. And, I decided to spend my summer working in ag in California, just kind of getting better and talking to a lot of farmers about water policy in their lives. And I would love to work in this space, but my only skill set is software. So I actually ended up, after I graduated, I ended up spending about 6 months just doing nothing, but talking to anyone that I could. This was like right during COVID. So I was like, trying to talk to anyone that I could who would talk to me. But no one was meeting in person.
Right.
So I ended up like cold emailing just farmer emails that I found and just was like, do you have 15 minutes to talk to me about your problems? Like, what are some things that you think could be made better in your lives? And so kind of kept on digging. And at the heart, the short story is at the heart of all of that was just finances and drowning in mountains of paperwork and regulation. And I just thought, okay, like that's a problem that I think software can help with.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to hear that it was a passion for agriculture combined with the skills that you had in software that led to the creation of Ambrook.
Yeah. I fully believe, and I want to spend my life doing meaningful work. And I think it'd be really hard for me, especially starting a company. It's just so painful, like it's so many ups and downs, and it's sometimes really fun and sometimes not so fun. And I think it'd be really hard for me to do that if I didn't really believe in what I was doing. I also come with a pretty strong, I love our country. Like I want to work on stuff that's going to help build back up like American prosperity. And so for me, helping a lot of producers understand their bottom lines and getting to know all the people that I've gotten to know throughout it has been the most rewarding part.
Well, I think a lot of our listeners are going to agree with that same sentiment of wanting to build back better to make sure that we can grow this country in the right fashions. And for us on the podcast, we preach all the time. You've got to know your break even. You've got to understand your figures. If you don't like that part of your business, you need to partner with somebody who's good at doing that for you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is actually the thing that I've come to realize is a lot of what we're actually in the business in is anxiety reduction. It's like it's giving a better sense of peace so you can go on and do the things that you actually care about. And I always think about like, even with our business, the things that give me anxiety are actually the things I should be looking at more, not less. And a lot of what we try to do is make that way less painful.
It's a perfect fit because after this conversation wraps up, we're going to lead into a conversation with Nina to talk about how you can be more resilient. And who'd have thought that maybe just understanding your finances better is one of those things that could reduce some of that anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, look, no one likes to do bookkeeping. It's not fun. It's like you're looking at numbers unless you're just wildly profitable. And as soon, you can.
I know one person and it's Tanner.
I mean, some people love it. And that's like, actually, I think we found it. I found a team of people who like love helping people with that. And that is like a special calling, but for most people, it just, it's confusing. It's tedious. Right. And I think there's actually a lot of, when we were looking at it, and especially, there's accounting software that's been out there for decades. So like why try to rebuild it? And we actually didn't try to start by rebuilding accounting software. We tried actually to start just by helping people navigate USDA paperwork when it came to the pandemic and applying for different disaster relief. We helped them with one program, which was relatively straightforward. And then they came back for more of the annual programs like Equip or something like that. Right. And they're like, can you help us out? And we were like, you need like a real-time balance sheet. Where's your, where are your financial statements? And realizing even though folks had been spending their, 20 years, doing all the right things for tax prep, they weren't actually really prepared to be able to take big financial risk or make those types of decisions. And come on digging into the problem and realized, actually, like, I think, it's more, bookkeeping should give you more than just tax prep at the end of the year. It should actually give you true insight and confidence in making and taking risks. That is what, building resilience is not just about, it's not easy. Otherwise everyone would do it. It's about actually taking real risk that might not pay off. And it's hard to know if you can do that if you don't know what your numbers are.
I know if Corey was sitting here, that's one of the goals for his operation. He doesn't want to just guess if he can afford a new purchase. He wants to know this is how it's going to fit. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's the part he's really enjoyed about Ambrook too, is that it is rooted in agriculture. So I think there's pieces to it that he loves because of that.
Yeah. And I think that the rooted in agriculture too is something that, and I kind of mentioned in the beginning, like we started to help folks with their other LLCs as well. I think actually the thing that there are a lot of quirks in ag that are important to get right. For sure. A lot of separate, different types of tax treatment, even all the way to the way that the business works. That's different than a lot of other businesses. But it's also, it's also, you can abstract it out into thinking about, like ag is most of the time, these businesses are multi P&L businesses. And that's actually kind of complicated. Usually most businesses like, in tech, for example, if you're a multi P&L business like that, you're upgrading to like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in like financial professional, financial staff and like certain types of ERPs. So it's actually that a lot of accounting software was built 20 years ago for a much simpler type of business. And when, especially with a lot of the SMB cloud software is out there, like they're built they're built for more simple businesses than ag.
Yeah, we know our listeners are continuing to look for ways to diversify, and that only makes finances a little bit more complicated. But
Yeah.
McKenzie, it's been a pleasure. Just to tease our listeners to see who the brains are behind the start of Ambrook. Appreciate you taking a little bit of time. Appreciate you wearing AirPods, right? Gave Eric a little bit of a hard time on that. No, just had to jab it one more time. I felt bad for the guy. We won't
I did too.
We won't let it die. But it's good to see you've got a team of real people around you that you're focused on agriculture and you're willing to pivot and help grow. So if our listeners are curious about Ambrook and want to learn more, or maybe they've got suggestions of their own, how do they reach out?
Yeah, we have a special URL for you all, just ambrook.com/profit. So if you go out, to that, it should give you a lot of information about how to contact our team and reach out from there.
That's great. Well, Mac, appreciate you joining us. And hopefully in the last 10 minutes, we became close enough friends to where the rest of the Farm for Profit listeners can call you Mac as well.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you again.